And what is going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Another Sunday special here of SEC Talk, and another week down. And we are now halfway, well, pretty much almost like halfway through the season so far, as we're getting here to the end of October and looking ahead to November. And this is where teams are going to start pulling away, being playoff contenders and playoff pretenders. But this was a lot of parity. We had a lot of top 10 teams going down. We start on Friday night with Louisville beating Miami, and it started at 11 a.m. on SEC by Vandy taking down number 10 LSU. Then the rest of the slate was pretty solid. So I think that we pretty much got what we wanted this weekend. A lot of good football, a lot of teams going down. I think that you are starting to really see the separation at the top of the polls, and you're starting to see, especially in the SEC, like the Alabamas and Texas A&Ms look like they are starting to separate from the pack here. So, Wade, what are your overall takeaways of the weekend of football, and how was your weekend in general?
Yeah, my takeaway is if you're not an Indiana fan or an Ohio State fan, you're probably a little disappointed because they seem like the cream of the crop. And, teams like Alabama are certainly heating up. Georgia got to feel pretty good too. But and can't forget about A&M. They snuck out a win. Still undefeated. So, I think it's pretty wide open. We're seeing some teams that aren't traditionally up there. You and I were talking about that, particularly out of the conference, especially with Indiana and Georgia Tech being up there now. And then some traditional powers just really not playing like themselves, like Clemson and LSU, teams like that. So, yeah, overall a good weekend of football. Caught a little bit of the action. Unfortunately, dedicated 3 hours to that LSU game. Probably could have done something better.
Yeah, maybe could have took care of some lawn work, or maybe work in the garden, do something else. So if get another hobby, because football. I know for me in general, over here for the past couple of weeks, both in fantasy football as well as watching some of my teams, because I'm a Saints and an LSU fan, and the Saints on Sundays, we know expect it to be a bad football team, but just watching that team, it's not very fun to watch. And then LSU, the past couple of weeks or so, has not been great. But we will get into that. All the matchups here. We'll go through our top 4 matchups, starting with that LSU versus Vanderbilt game. But before we get into that game, if you have any questions pertaining to your favorite team or teams outside of the conference, because like we mentioned, there was a lot of parity that happened. I feel like this is just the beginning of what's going to happen. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to leave us a comment, and we will get to it after our hot topic segment. We're live both on Facebook and on YouTube, so I'm going to try and monitor some comments. And if we have any questions or comments that we need to bring up during the duration of the show, we will do that. Okay, well, like I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and start. Sorry that I'm trying to look at my phone. I'm trying to pull up this tweet that I was wanting to show based on this game. But number 10 LSU went on the road, and number 17 Vanderbilt, and the Commodores beat LSU. If you didn't really listen to the broadcast, Vanderbilt was actually favored in this game for the first time in quite some while. I think that everybody knew that even before the game. But Vandy 31-24, and this, like I mentioned, this is not your typical Vanderbilt team this season. Clark Lee has done a terrific job turning around this program, and I think that a lot of people are going to be all these jobs that are going to be opening. I wouldn't be surprised if Clark Lee is thrown in there. I'm not saying that he's going to take the job because he's a Vanderbilt alumni. He played football there, and he just feels like a Vandy man that he's going to stay there forever. But we will see. But Vanderbilt, I think that they were pretty physical and dominant on both sides of the football. I mean, LSU, they got the ball first, and on their first drive, they had one of their best opening drives of the season. Usually we're so accustomed to this LSU offense going quietly and going 3 and out, but they were able to drive down the field. They had some missed opportunities where they could have got a touchdown, but ended up settling for a 39-yard field goal by Damian Ramos. You go up 3-0, feeling good about yourself, and then your defense steps on the field, and Vandy really wastes no time. They go up 7-3, and really outside of that, I mean, LSU's defense, Ryan Kelly just keeps talking about complementary football. This team just hasn't really put together on both sides of the football. It feels like that's been the case for the past couple of seasons, going back to 2023, you had that Jane Daniels high-powered offense. The defense sucked. Then last year, kind of had it on both sides. I mean, defense, you had some games. Offense had to really carry you. This part of the season so far, the offense has been the struggle. Meanwhile, the defense has been your saving grace. Well, really, that was the complete opposite at times of this game. But Diego Pavia had himself a game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. That one was the clincher, that 24-yard rushing touchdown. LSU did have some chances to get back in this game, but just too many missed opportunities on the offensive side of the ball. As Vandy, we were talking about them like after the Alabama loss, this tough schedule coming up with LSU and Missouri, both back-to-back ranked teams. So this is a big win for the Commodores. We'll definitely talk about them later on in the show. So we're going to definitely talk about them. On LSU's front now, 2 losses. And really looking at your resume, what's like your best win at this point? Because Clemson lost again. Florida, sneaked away with a win over Mississippi State. You really don't have like a good win that's really separating yourselves among these SEC teams. So I know I went along for too long there trying to ramble, but what were your overall takeaways on both sides of the football here?
I think you covered it very nicely, and as nicely as you probably could give LSU some credit there. It was just a clunky game. I mean, all offseason we got all the hype about the receiving core that they brought in. They told guys like CJ Daniels to kick rocks because we got all these guys coming in, and Daniels looks to be like a top 5 receiver in the country. And then, this week they did a good job of trying to get Barryon Brown involved early. I think he had 4 grabs on the opening drive. Came up a little short. That's okay. But that was like the most life we saw out of the offense the whole ball game, and then Brown and everybody else, pretty much besides Trey'Dez Green and Xavier Thomas, disappeared. So I think this offense just isn't able to hum for whatever reason. 24 points seems to be the max they can get. And defensively, it just crumbled. I mean, you didn't have your leader out there in Whit Weeks. And Bernard Gooden not being on the defensive line, I think, hurt as well.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt ran the ball a lot better than I thought they would in this game. I knew Pavia would have a couple scrambles, but even with their backup running back in there, Vanderbilt moved the ball quite fine. There was one play that just drove me nuts because I really think it was the turning point.
That 4th and 1 where like Diego Pavia looked like Johnny Manziel, and he had that running back open on that screen and broke like 5 tackles.
Yeah, and Pyburn missed the sack.
Yep.
That was a play. I think that summed it up. I mean, LSU almost got lucky and stole the game, but they didn't. So here we are. And then, by the way, if you didn't watch this game, might as well be 38-24. Vanderbilt kneeled it out to end the game, and did not even rush the field. So I think that kind of shows you where this program's at. A good thing for Vanderbilt, bad thing for LSU.
Yeah, definitely. I got to give credit to Vandy. I think that you knocked it on the head there. This final score really isn't indicative of how dominant Vandy looked on both offensive and defensive lines. I think really Vandy, where they won this game, was they really controlled both the offensive and defensive line. And I don't think there was I can't even remember if Diego Pavia, he got pressured, but maybe 1 or 2 sacks there. So you got to give credit there to both the Vandy, both offense and defensive line. Now I know we're going to give Vandy props, but I definitely think we do need to zone back in on this LSU team, because I think that there's definitely a lot of high expectations with this team. I know that yourself in the preseason had this team going to the SEC championship game. I think that a lot of people around Baton Rouge know that this was the most talented team that Brian Kelly has had this season. After the strong start against Clemson, I think that a lot of people were looking at this team like, okay, this is the team that we expected. And then you go through the season, only scoring 24 against Louisiana Tech. This team, if you saw the graphic when watching this game, only LSU and North Carolina are the only 2 teams in FBS to not put up more than 25 points against an FBS opponent. So Wade, I know that a lot of people I know pretty much everywhere you look on Twitter are wanting Brian Kelly out. Are you on the same sentiment, or do you think that he needs more time? I know that his buyout right now is at $53 million. You're seeing James Franklin, his buyout be a lot. We just saw Billy Napier get fired. I know it was only a $20 million buyout. But where do you think this state of the program is right now in Baton Rouge?
Well, I mean, I'm not in the fire Brian Kelly camp just because we just got done paying Ed Orgeron his buyout, and our program's really not in much different shape than it was whenever we started buying out Ed Orgeron. Sure, LSU got back to the SEC championship year one under Brian Kelly. That immediately seemed like it was the right kind of hire, but now we're kind of back in that land of, 9-3, 8-4 potentially. If it drops any worse than 8-4, I might change my tune. But
yeah,
right now, I think I'd keep them, invest the resources elsewhere so that our program doesn't completely collapse. College football is very fragile right now, and you don't want to see LSU become a bottom feeder of the SEC because, I think we're seeing the hierarchy switch up a lot clearly. I mean, look, Vanderbilt's a top 10 team now. So you don't want LSU to just fall behind in the hierarchy. So I think Brian Kelly can provide some stability in that regard. I think the only way they would make that move is if like Nick Saban was like, hey, I'm coming out of retirement to coach you.
Yeah.
But I don't know who's out there that I would definitively trust. And it's a tough coaching hiring cycle right now. I mean, there's some big time jobs open. Some of the candidates that would be qualified, they might be more interested in Penn State or Florida. I think that there's benefits to all three of those programs. So I think you give it another year and just kind of go all in and have it be known going into the season that you gotta win the conference or make the playoff. Some sort of reasonably achievable goal of that nature.
All right, so I think we spent too much time here on LSU Bengals. Let's go ahead and get into the next game here. It's a top 10 showdown. This was our SEC Talk game of the week, and it was a high-scoring game. I don't think that heading into this one I saw this going this way, but I was very impressed by both teams. Ole Miss and Georgia. Georgia ended up pulling this one out 43-35, and this was a crazy game because the first offensive possessions for both teams consisted of both touchdowns and field goals. There were no punts through 3 quarters of this game. Trinidad Chambliss, I like that was one of my worries. Like, okay, but those worries were completely dashed because he was completely unfazed. I think that little excuse that a lot of people were saying, like, oh, how is he going to fare in SEC Stadium? He's been playing at Fair State for the past couple of seasons. I don't think that really fazed him at all because this Ole Miss team is very talented on the offense, and Lane Kiffin is definitely going to be a hot name both for the Florida job and the Auburn job. We'll see if he takes it or not. But Ole Miss, definitely a consistent program so far. I know they ended up losing this game, but I was definitely impressed, especially on the offensive side. Defense, not so much. I mean, the defenses didn't really show up on both sides, specifically Georgia through the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter really changed. Ole Miss was up by 9 points heading into the fourth quarter, and Georgia was able to turn it up on the defensive side. I think that Ole Miss didn't even get over 50 total yards in that quarter after putting up over 300 yards over the last 3 quarters. So honestly, really takeaways, I was very impressed with both teams. Still concerned with Georgia's defense because this is now the 3rd time actually now getting beat. I know that, Alabama on paper didn't put up as many points as Ole Miss, but, Ty Simpson was perfect to start off that game. Then he saw Tennessee get out to that early lead. So Georgia has this consistent problem of teams really jumping on them. And then in the second half, they turn it on. They happened last week against Auburn. Auburn had that opportunity to go up 17-0. So Georgia, they're not like the Georgia team like when they won back-to-back national championships where they're going to beat everybody on their schedule, which they could definitely do throughout the rest of the way. Their schedule is very manageable outside of, getting Texas at home. But Texas doesn't look all that good. Ole Miss, their defense really needs to figure it out because the best that we saw them, was last week against Washington State at times and against LSU. That was definitely their best game. But this was a big win for Georgia. I feel like whoever was going to win this one was really going to set them up to get a college football playoff berth and maybe even make it to Atlanta the way that the SEC is shaping up. But do you feel the way that I feel, like you were impressed with both sides here?
Yeah, I mean, I was more so in Ole Miss. I mean, I think that in previous years, Ole Miss would have been the ones to get punched in the mouth. So when I saw that Ole Miss was winning by like 10 points for the majority of the game, I mean, I really thought this team was different. But ultimately, the Georgia defense did step up, and Ole Miss finally did get stopped. The difference was Ole Miss at that point could not stop Georgia. And Gunnar Stockton, I mean, he continues to play well. So, like you said, it's a different look of a Georgia team here. But like we've talked about with Texas A&M, they win the ball game in a lot of different ways. They can go shot for shot with you. I think if it came down to a running game and a defensive game, I think they could be up for the challenge. I don't think they're as dominant on either one of those fronts as they've been in the past, but I think it's in them. But I think it is more impressive that with a guy like Gunnar Stockton that they can put up 40 points consistently in the SEC. I think that's actually a more dynamic Georgia offense than we've seen with Beck and even Bennett at times.
Yeah, absolutely. So big win for the Georgia. They will head now on the bye week before their annual rivalry game against Florida. Ole Miss will have another big road test against Oklahoma. So another top 15 showdown for the Rebels coming up on deck. Feels like that's another big one because they do, really outside of that game, their schedule really eases up after that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have some home games. Obviously, they have that Egg Bowl at the end of the season, which is always going to be fun to watch. Now let's move on to another shootout. There was definitely some games, like you pretty much had it all in the SEC. You had some high-scoring games. You had some low-scoring games. And this crazy rivalry that I feel like always comes down to the wire, whether it's played in Jerry World or played in Fayetteville. Now, number 4, Texas A&M wins this one 45-42 against Arkansas. And, man, if only Arkansas had a defense, I feel like their record would definitely be better at this point because it feels like in every loss they have at least given up 38 points. Like even Notre Dame game, they gave up 56, and now against Texas A&M. But Texas A&M's offense continues to really impress me. I mean, Marcel Reed has really flourished in this role. You did see one of their key running backs go down with an injury. Then you saw Ruben Owens really take advantage of the backfield. And then the receivers continue to be great with both Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion. The defense definitely continues to be consistent. I feel like it goes week to week with this team. I mean, the Notre Dame game, they gave up over 40 points. Then you look at all the other teams where they played Mississippi State, Florida, and Auburn, you could say, okay, well, their offenses aren't that great. But, their defense, especially their defensive line, really showed out. But, I mean, you went up against, like, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all the SEC in Taylor Green, who just really dialed it up on this one. And then, Malik Washington really had a good game, over 100 yards rushing for the running back. Then you saw a couple of big catches from the receivers. But this was just defense was optional in this game. Texas A&M was able to get to a double-digit lead. I mean, I feel like Arkansas was pulling it to close, but they just couldn't really get that key stop. They had a key stop on 4th down where their running back had them in the backfield, and they were able to get that conversion. And then Texas A&M was just able to put this game away. So that's just really been the story of the season for the Razorbacks, is that their offense is good enough to win these games. The defense, though, continues to be a letdown. So I know, we had that question of Texas A&M, last season. I mean, not last season, last week, if they were separating themselves. Does this game, really change your opinion on A&M, or do you still have some question marks with this team?
I think games like this do make me doubt their ability to win at all. But I mean, I think that they're one of the better teams in the conference and the country. I mean, I just think that they're going to face better teams than Arkansas. And if they're letting up 42 points, I mean, I get it. Taylor Green is good. Mike Washington's good. But, like, they're not at the same level as some of the skill guys that Ohio State has,
Yeah.
or Oregon, or someone of that nature, even Alabama,
Or even Indiana.
Indiana. Yeah. So I don't think you get away with it against a team like that. I think you can against a team like Arkansas because generally you are more talented. But this is kind of how they've been all year. They did it against a very good team in Notre Dame. I think it was the same exact score. So
Yeah.
They just like we talked about with Georgia, they'll go shot for shot with you and put up 45 points if they have to. But then we've also seen this defense step it up and really limit teams like Florida and Mississippi State. So I don't know. I think this week's a big test for them. I know LSU's a little down in the dumps right now, but I mean, if A&M can go on the road back-to-back weeks and improve the defense, I would feel a lot better about them.
Yeah, I would agree with that same sentiment as well. So we go from our 2 higher scoring games to one of our lower scoring games of the weekend. We're not going to talk about Texas and Kentucky. I'm sure we will get to that in SEC Fantasy because I did have the Texas defense, and we will talk about that. But number 16, Missouri at Auburn. I know that 2 of our panelists, including our guest picker, this was his upset pick. And Auburn, man, they had so many opportunities to win this game like they've had in so many SEC games this season, like the Oklahoma game, the Georgia game, but it's just the same old for this Auburn team. But Mizzou ends up pulling this one out in overtime, 23-17, double overtime, that is. There's been a lot of overtime games this season, not only in the SEC, but outside of the whole the college football landscape. But really, just like the same old story, honestly, from both of these teams. Like a little bit of offense. The defense definitely showed up on both sides of the ball. I mean, Bo Perbula definitely made some key throws down the stretch to get this one to overtime. I mean, Ahmad Hardy didn't have like that crazy game that we're so accustomed to. He did have a couple of touchdowns on the day. But it just felt like, Missouri Auburn, like a typical game against them. It feels like every time that these two teams are facing off, is either one of the winners have to go to overtime and win this thing, or pull it out in the last drive in the fourth quarter. But man, Auburn's got to find themselves a quarterback because they can't be doing this every single year. I don't know if they just need to get rid of Hugh Freeze, or I think they just need to do both. Get rid of Hugh Freeze and find somebody else, and just tell Jackson Arnold to maybe get out of the SEC and maybe go try another conference, because the SEC hasn't worked out quite well for him, because he honestly wasn't great at Oklahoma. I know he didn't really have that many good weapons. The offensive line wasn't great. But, I mean, you have Cam Coleman, one of the best wide receivers, and Eric Singleton, who you got from Georgia Tech. I bet Eric Singleton is like, man, get me back to my quarterback.
Cautionary tale right there, man.
Yeah, because, my gosh, I haven't seen a quarterback just especially in that last play in fourth down. Like, he had so much time. He had a couple of open receivers. He was like, nope, come sack me. I want to lose it. I don't know. He's just a terrible quarterback.
That's Peyton Thorne,
to be honest with you. I mean, so many great Auburn quarterbacks have come through this program. You just had a lot of mid so far. You had Peyton Thorne. It's like Peyton Thorne 2.0, it feels like. This dude can't really do too much throwing the football. But Missouri, definitely a good and gritty win for them. I think that this was definitely a big win for them, especially coming off of a tough, physical game against Alabama at home. And then you go into a tough environment. I mean, Auburn could be 0-12 and they would sell out Jordan here. That's one of the most underrated environments in the SEC. So this was definitely a big win for Mizzou. Auburn, just the same old, same old.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. Missouri, though, yeah, good for them. Could have easily won against Alabama last week. They didn't let the letdown get to them 2 weeks in a row. This defense looks a lot better too recently. So I think Missouri, with the schedule they have, especially with a game. Do they play? Yeah, they play A&M, right?
Yeah, they play A&M at home after they play Vandy.
Yeah, so I mean they do control their destiny still. So I mean, a lot to play for here. You got one of the best playmakers in the country, and honestly, he didn't have his best game, and they won without him. So I like where this team's headed.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mizzou, like we mentioned, got a road test in Nashville against the Commodores, and Auburn got a road test against Arkansas, which it feels like both of those teams just desperately need a win at this point to really feel something. But that is our top 4 games. Like I mentioned, we had some other games. It's kind of crazy that we even get to Alabama and Tennessee because let's be honest with you, that was not much of a
You know, the
game.
snooze.
Yeah, that was just Alabama. That's just they were definitely impressive. We had Oklahoma destroying South Carolina, and then we had Mississippi State falling to Florida on definitely one of the worst interceptions to throw at that time of the game. And then we had Texas surviving at Kentucky 16-13. We were praising Texas last week, thinking they maybe turn the corner. Then nope, they just come back and drop an egg. They did win, but we will definitely get to the Longhorns later in the show. Okay, so that is all of our games. Now we will get into our Week 8 pick 'em results. Wade, congratulations. 7-1. Your one loss did come early. So all of us started actually 0-1, thanks to LSU dropping the 8 ball there in Nashville. So you went 7-1. Myself and our guest picker went 4-4. So update your rankings. Elise is still in first place at 5-3. Austin now moves to in second place of 4-4. Chet, our first analyst to be under 500 this season, though he was trying to pull off some upsets, but the wrong upsets happened this Saturday, 3-5. So that is how all of us picked in week number 8. So now we will move on to our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll, and pretty much the same teams that you saw in last week's show. Well, there was definitely some shuffling around with all the wins and losses that happened in the conference, but still your top team of the AP poll, really hailing from the SEC, is number 3, Texas A&M. They did move up a spot after that high-scoring shootout in Fayetteville this past weekend. Alabama moves up a couple of spots to number 4. Number 5 is Georgia. They moved up a couple of spots after that big win at home against Ole Miss. And speaking of Ole Miss, they dropped a couple of spots. To be honest with you, I wouldn't even drop Ole Miss at all. I just don't feel like they deserve to move just based on what else happened. But they are now at number 8. Vandy now in the top 10. They could definitely move up with a big win against Mizzou at home. Number 13, Oklahoma, like I mentioned, with the drubbing of South Carolina. They do move up a couple of spots. They definitely look better. John Mateer definitely knocked off some rust. Maybe it's just South Carolina being a bad football team at this point, but who knows? Number 15, Mizzou. Number 17, Tennessee. Number 20 is LSU. And number 22, Texas. I do apologize. I did leave off Texas last week, but yes, I did. Did not forget this time to include the Longhorns, though. I wouldn't even have them in the top 25. Neither would I have LSU, but what are your overall thoughts on this? Maybe who's too high, who's too low? What you're looking at this?
Well, Oklahoma dropped, 2 spots after beating South Carolina by 20 on the road. So I think that was a little puzzling to me. But, I guess you got to reward Vanderbilt for their big win. Tennessee, I don't know. I think that, their losses are quality losses to number 4 and number 5, but they didn't really look competitive this weekend. No. So I really think everybody inside the top 15 is what I would consider to be a contender. And then 17, 20, and 22, decent
we'll see
programs,
you in the Outback Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's the Outback Bowl tier. So, it's crazy seeing Vanderbilt up there, but I don't really have an argument against it.
No, I don't really have an argument with the top 10. I think that's about really who's separated themselves from being at the top. And the rest of it will take care of itself. You'll be playing in some meaningless December bowl game that probably nobody will care about unless you're whatever. We'll get to that. But that is your AP Top 25 poll. We will keep track of this throughout the rest of the season. And I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll get some playoff picks. I think that we just need to get some more football in us. With a 12-team playoff, it's hard to predict. But we will do that over the next couple of weeks. Because I know we did that with a 4-team, but I think we should definitely implement it moving forward. So now let's go on to our SEC Fantasy Week 8 results. The story of the season so far, it's definitely been a segment that's been dominated by myself. The score heading into this one was 5-1. So Wade desperately needing a win to really get on track because he is starting. The weeks are starting to dwindle down. There's only so many weeks that you can win throughout the rest of the season to get to even. So Wade, kick it off to see if you can get back on track here.
Yeah, I definitely needed a big week, and it starts at quarterback, and I got it out of DJ Lagway. This was DJ Lagway's first appearance on SEC Talk this year,
which is
and
shocking.
It was a good one. 288 yards, even had positive rushing yards despite that awful Florida offensive line. So job well done there by Lagway against the Bulldogs. Quintravian Wisner, I mean, I wanted more out of him against Kentucky. Kentucky's defense did step it up. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
But overall, 53 yards. I mean, it's not going to kill you. Jeremy Bernard, I mean, he looked like the best player on the field on Saturday. This was a good play. He had 109 total yards. Tyler mentioned it to me in our pre-show meeting that I think 50 of that came on the ground. He had a couple jet sweeps and designed lateral plays, but one play that stood out was it was kind of a busted play. They were going to run a double pass, and it wasn't there, so he had the instincts to tuck and run, and he turned it into a 20-yard scramble, and he was like 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, so he ran 30-plus yards on that one play. Of course, just getting credit for the 20, but overall, just an outstanding effort for him. And then the Oklahoma defense. I mean, I think this was the pick of the week. South Carolina continues to really struggle on offense, and that puts me back in the positives. Actually, I was in the positives last week too, but 226 yards, that'll do. That's a good score for the middle of SEC play.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. You're going to get that every single week when your quarterback gets nearly 300 yards and your defense really complements that, because that's really like the way that you win SEC fantasy. As long as your quarterback is over your mark of your defense, you're going to get in the positives every single time, as you will see with my score coming up. You can already tell what happened.
You needed Simpson to get more.
Ty Simpson, 261. It wasn't like the prettiest of games, but honestly, you didn't really need like that big of a showing from Ty Simpson because, I mean, Alabama, like we mentioned, dominate this game from start to finish, and you had that 99-yard pick six that really turned the tides for Alabama in the second half, and they had that complimentary football that you can do, run it with J.M. Miller, and your two best receivers with Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. So Ty Simpson, 261 yards. Honestly, I'll take that every single day of the week. Quan Lacey, if this was actual fantasy, we got more points. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns at the one. But he had some yardage both in the receiving game and the running game to get him to 41. KC Concepcion, the wide receiver of Texas A&M, and that's really been the popularity. We've both picked KC Concepcion and Mario Craver now, so Texas A&M getting a lot of love here on SEC Fantasy, 69 yards, 16 of those coming on a run and play. The rest of those came through the receiving. And then Texas defense, I'm glad I don't have to ever see this logo on my side of the defense, because this was like, I was talking this up. Like, we didn't even spend 5 seconds on this game, and it turned out to be like one of the most impressive showings, at least for Kentucky's side. Because if you're looking at the box score, like Kentucky's defense only gave up 175 yards. Meanwhile, Texas defense almost gave up 400. You would think, looking at the box score, you would have been a Kentucky win. But even with the win, honestly, Texas deserved to lose this game. 395 yards, and like we mentioned, if your quarterback is below your defense, this is going to happen every single week. It really doesn't matter what your receivers or running back does. When your defense puts up that, this is what's going to result in negative 24. But it's all right. I'd rather it not be a runaway this season. I kind of want Wade to make it competitive during the stretch. So I'm glad that Wade got the dub there, much needed. So that now goes, I believe, now to 6 wins to 2. So still some headway that Wade needs to make, but I definitely believe in him over the next couple of weeks because, with a first overall pick with the Survivor defenses, that is definitely going to be crucial here over the next couple of weeks of the season as we continue in the conference play. So that is your results, 226 to negative 24. So before we get into our draft here, heading into week number 9 of the season, just to go over the roster and the rules of SEC fantasy. So you have 1 quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, and one defense. And our two little rules that we go by every single week: you cannot use the same player twice in back-to-back weeks. You also have to use at least one player on the offensive side of the ball from each team. We pretty much knocked off pretty much every team at this point. I still need a Kentucky player. Wade needs a couple of players on his side. And once you draft a defense, you can't use them again. So we've already used up 8 defenses. The 9th one will be used this week. So we are kind of dwindling down.
Getting thin, buddy.
Yeah, we are getting into pretty tough territory as we're heading to the late part of October and into the stretch run in November. So it's definitely going to be hard to pick there. So we will go on to our SEC fantasy draft. No, the first pick was not taken by the quarterback. You're going to see now that the first pick is mainly going to be defense because the survivor is starting to become tricky every single week. But 2 quarterbacks you have seen so far in SEC fantasy, no new faces this week, as you do have Joey Aguilar of Tennessee, Taylor Green of Arkansas. So wait, talk about Aguilar's matchup and how he could do better than what Arch Manning did against this Kentucky defense.
Yeah, I mean, the Kentucky defense does give you a little reason to pause. But Arch Manning, I mean, he hasn't broken 200 yards all season, I don't think, other than maybe against like UTEP. So, I mean, look, this Tennessee offense is fine. They just ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, Alabama's playing really good football right now. Aguilar was playing great. He made a boneheaded decision to end the half. You know, it was situational football. He had no timeouts in his pocket. You can't take a sack. You don't know if you have enough time on the clock if you throw it away to get another playoff. And I think he just forgot that an interception's at play here, right? You know, It's the end of the half. It's not the end of the game. In that situation, you just gotta clock it and hope that you get an extra play. But if you don't, you just take it into the half. And unfortunately, that definitely flipped the script for this Tennessee team, and they were playing from behind most of the game. But this is a get-right situation against Kentucky, and you know, this team's at their best when he airs it out. So hopefully he plays with confidence, and I think he can get at least 250 yards for me.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I'm going to go with my guy here, Taylor Green of Arkansas. And I know the matchup on paper could look tough, but I mean, you just play Texas A&M and slice and dice that secondary. So I definitely think that Arkansas, you know, they're at a point of the season where they're just like due for a win, especially at home, because the home schedule for them has really been brutal. But Taylor Green has really been consistent, and I want to get Taylor Green as much as possible in SEC fantasy. I used him early on this season. Figures that he went a couple of weeks. He was very impressive in last week's game. I might have actually gotten to the positives. So I did pick Taylor Green, but I do feel confident in Green's both capability on the run and through the air. So Taylor Green and Joey Aguilar will be your 2 quarterbacks. And running backs, welcome back Ahmad Hardy, our MVP so far this season. He is back on the docket here for SEC. And I feel like we've been on a streak here of at least one A&M player on the offense being featured on this list, whether that's Marcel Reed or it's one of the receivers. In this case, it is going to be Ruben Owens. So talk about Ahmad Hardy. I know that we've used him so many times on SEC Fantasy, but what are you looking forward to Hardy's matchup against Vandy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that big-time players have to show up in big-time games. This is going to be the prime-time game. You know Vanderbilt's going to bring it with Diego Pavia, so Missouri's got to bring it with Ahmad Hardy. I mean, I think that Purbulla is serviceable. He makes big plays when it matters, but this team's bread and butter is its ground game. And Ahmad Hardy, you know, he had an okay game this past week, but it's going to take more than 60 yards, I think, to beat Vanderbilt on the road. So I think he's up for the challenge. Book him for 100 yards and a touchdown.
We'll book Ruben Owens for the same because I could definitely see that. But I think that there's going to be a lot of big plays here for Texas A&M's offense. I know that it was only one bad week from the LSU defense, but I mean it's really been consistent product of this Texas A&M offense. You know, outside of maybe that Auburn game, they were really inconsistent. But got to give credit to Auburn's defense. But I just feel like this A&M offense is going to want to make a statement against a very talented LSU defense in Baton Rouge. But I look for Ruben Owens to make some big plays and get a touchdown against that Tiger defense. So 2 talented running backs. Now we go on to 2 talented receivers. Both teams coming off of losses here. Cam Coleman, the talented receiver of Auburn, that I desperately want him to get another quarterback at this point, and Chris Brazzell Jr. He was really solid in that loss against Alabama. He's really been the alpha receiver for the Vols. So talk about Cam Coleman going up against an Arkansas defense. It feels like they'd be getting up a lot of points. I guess you see the same here.
Yeah, I think this game has shootout potential. I mean, that's if Auburn can keep up their end of the stick. But I think this offense will flow a little bit better against Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas's defense is one of the worst units in the conference. So it's a good time to, I don't know, to start airing it out if you're Auburn. You're a little thin at running back anyway, so use your weapons. So I think Coleman or Singleton's going to have a big game. I wouldn't book them both having big games just because this offense has struggled, but I think one of them is going to get it going. So why not take a bet on Cam Coleman? By the way, I mean, he had 100 yards this past week against Missouri, and they only scored 18 points. So he's still getting involved, but I'm looking for him to have I'm still kind of looking for him to have that breakout game that we thought he would have this year. I mean, this is a guy that should be an all SEC talent. Might not be all his fault. A lot of it's situational, but I think it's time for him to step it up and make it happen.
Yeah, it feels like this is the game where this Auburn offense would have the big game against the struggling Arkansas defense. But I expect a bounce back for my guy. I know that, like I mentioned, he did have a good game, but as a whole, this Tennessee offense. So the points I'm getting is actually going to be the points you're getting too, because you picked Aguilar here. So it's kind of a win-lose situation here. But I do trust Chris Brazzell Jr., like I mentioned. He's been one of the more consistent receivers for this Tennessee offense. I expect them to really be solid against Kentucky. I know, Kentucky get 175. Texas offense has been one of the worst in the SEC this season. I know you could say what they did against Oklahoma. That was an outlier, but really there's a big sample size that the Texas offense has really underperformed this season. But I do expect Chris Brazzell and this Tennessee offense to really put up a lot of points against this Kentucky defense. All right, now let's go on to the defenses here. Like I mentioned at the top, Alabama was definitely the defense to pick there. So kudos to you on that. Tennessee, I will definitely get to that, why I picked them. But Alabama versus South Carolina feels like a pretty vanilla pick here for you.
Yeah, had them in my back pocket. And, I mean, their schedule's mildly tough down the stretch. They are playing some sputtering offenses, such as LSU and Auburn later in the season. But SEC fantasy, it's all about right now, and who knows when I'm going to have the first pick those weeks. So just had to take this opportunity while Mike Elko's still employed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still have Texas A&M's defense too. Yeah, heading into this one, there was definitely a lot of defenses where I was going back and forth on. Like I was like, do I want to go Vandy? Do I want to go Tennessee? It feels like deja vu. I'm going from one orange to the next. And I'm going to go against Kentucky yet again. I'm just banking on that Kentucky can't do that again. I know that Tennessee's defense has been abysmal in a lot of these games, but I just feel like Tennessee's just going to make a statement. I mean, Kentucky, they can only play so many close conference games, right? I mean, they got to get blown out in some of these games. But I'm going to go with Tennessee. This is just close your eyes and hope that they don't give up 400 yards. I'll take anything around 300 or less as long as my quarterback does some work for me. So this is just survive and advance and move on to the next defense there. So the confidence is definitely below 50%, but you know what? We will see on that. So that is our SEC fantasy draft for week number 9. We will definitely be back on next week's show to see who took the win. And we will now move on to our week 9 games and pick them. No guest picker this week, but we will have a guest picker more than likely at the start of November when we have those big slate. We'll see about week number 10, but we will definitely have some more guest pickers throughout the duration of this season. So we will now get into our week 9 games and pick them. We start with our 11 a.m. game. We're going to start off hot here in the slate with the top 15 matchup between number 8 Ole Miss and number 13 Oklahoma. Ole Miss coming off of a tough loss on the road in Athens, a high-scoring shootout. Oklahoma dominant win on the road against South Carolina, 26-7. So who you got in this one between the Rebs and the Sooners?
I went back and forth on this one. I do like that it is a home game for Oklahoma. I think if it's earlier in the year and Mateer's healthy, I'd be all on Oklahoma here. But it is an 11 a.m. kickoff, so I think that kind of levels the playing field some. And honestly, Ole Miss impressed me more over the past weekend than they did when they were undefeated. I mean, I think that this team played really well against Georgia, and if they can play well against Georgia on the road, I think they can play well against Oklahoma. And with Mateer a little hobbled up, I'm going to go with Ole Miss to get the road win.
All right, so you got the Rebels bouncing back with a big win. I think that, how's Ole Miss going to respond? Because that was definitely a tough loss because it feels like they really dominated for 3 quarters. And that one, like I mentioned, they were up 9. Heading into the fourth quarter, and their offense, Georgia, made some adjustments heading into that fourth quarter and really played well. And I feel like this is definitely going to be one of the better defenses that Ole Miss will be facing off against, because I know Oklahoma, outside that outlier game against Texas, I mean, they were dominant against South Carolina. You can say whatever you want about South Carolina's offense and overall team at this point, but John Mateer definitely played better than he did in that Red River rivalry game against a talented Texas defense. I mean, Ole Miss's defense is definitely gettable, and Torrey Blaylock really had himself a game. Man, if you had Blaylock, you would have got up to 400 because he had over 100
A week
yards
off on him, man.
and 1 touchdown. But I'm actually going to go with Oklahoma. I think that they play to their style. I think they want to slow Ole Miss's down, their offense down. So look for Oklahoma to really take over the time of possession and really make this a defensive battle game. Because I think if they get to that, then I think that Oklahoma, if they get to a shootout, then that favors Ole Miss. So give me Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners pulling off a big one at home. And Chet's actually going to go with the Sooners too. So you are the lone on the Ole Miss. So this is another 11 a.m. game where we're either going to start off 0-1 or 1-0. So this is back-to-back weeks where we're already starting off with a top 25 matchup. So starting off the gates hot here on our Week 9 games. And we will continue on with an old rivalry here between Auburn at Arkansas. Another game that it feels like it's like a high-scoring game, especially over the last couple of years coming down to the wire. So Auburn and Arkansas, it feels like this is like it's not really a must-win at this point because let's be honest, like they're not going to make the playoff or anything at this point. But it definitely feels like the winner of this one just really needs to, whoever wins, kudos to them. They just really need to feel a win. The loser could definitely have a downward spiral. So you got between the Hogs and the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean this this could be the battle of the interim coaches if Auburn pulled the trigger, but they didn't quite yet. I think if they lose this one, you might see that news break. So I don't know. I mean, like you said, Arkansas is just kind of due for one of these wins, right? I mean, they haven't been playing that bad on offense. The defense has held them back, but I think Auburn's just kind of checked out right now. So give me Arkansas. I think they get a win. And I think Auburn's looking for a coach too.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pretty much the same sentiment where I think Arkansas is going to win this game. I just think that Auburn has lost some chances in some of these games to really take advantage. And, this could be a team that we could be looking at, maybe 5-1, 4-2 at this point. But yeah, I'm just going to go with Arkansas. This offense is just way too talented. I think that their defense is going to make 1 or 2 stops. In the end of this game, like I mentioned, they're just due for a win. You could say the same for Auburn, but Auburn's had a lot of chances at this point. They just haven't really taken advantage of it. I just think that Arkansas with Bob Petrino, you're seeing some new life with this team. So give me the Hogs, and it's a clean sweep on Arkansas in Fayetteville over Auburn. So I think that we're in the same boat. I mean, Auburn at this point just waiting to fire Hugh Freeze. And they're just looking a change of direction at this point, but we're all rolling with Arkansas. But now let's move on to the next game, number 4, Alabama at South Carolina. This game last year looked like it was going to be an Alabama runaway, and South Carolina was able to crawl back, ended up almost winning that game. Was like a 2-point conversion away from that. But Alabama has been rolling. That Florida State loss, which looks pretty bad at this point because Florida State has now lost 4 in a row, and they lost to one of the worst teams in the ACC last night of the Stanford Cardinal. South Carolina, I don't know what the heck has happened to this team. Their offense is just not what I thought it was going to be. Defense, too. I mean, the defense hasn't really looked good either. So pretty bad team of South Carolina. So how do you see the Gamecocks faring against Alabama the way that they've been looking?
Yeah, I mean, this game looked a little bit better in the preseason. Alabama was going to be sandwiched in between the Tennessee game and I guess a bye week. But you kind of thought that South Carolina would catch them napping. I don't see it happening. I mean, South Carolina is just completely fallen off a cliff. They're wasting one of the more dynamic quarterbacks we've seen the last few seasons. He's just not able to get anything going because there is no threat of running the football on a play action with anybody but the quarterback, and they don't have any receivers. So I've never seen an offense this underprepared or have this lack of talent, and it's just not going to go anywhere good. So give me Alabama in this one. This team is hot.
Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama pretty big here. I mean, South Carolina's offense just won't be able to keep up with Alabama and Alabama's defense the way they've really been feeling themselves over the past couple of weeks. They're not going to catch anyone sleeping, like you mentioned. They do get the bye week after this. So, like, let's look to forward to after this week, like just getting some rest. So you're going to – I feel like all the players just going to put everything in the line. They're going to rest up, and they'll have that test at home against LSU coming off of the bye week. But, yeah, South Carolina just doesn't have – the dudes on both offense and defense to really get this done. So I see this one being done pretty early there. I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama's up like 31-7 or something like that at the half. Alabama, it's going to be all Crimson Tide on Saturday afternoon. Chet feels the same way as we're all rolling with the Tide against the Gamecocks. Now let's move on to our SEC Talk Game of the Week, which features number 15 Mizzou at number 10 Vandy. College Game Day is also going to be heading to Vandy for the first time, so that's definitely going to be a treat for the Commodore faithful to take in that show. So Mizzou, Vandy, big game for whoever wins this one, because it feels like whoever wins this one is really going to be set up potentially for a college football playoff berth. I know Vandy still has to deal with Texas, but Texas honestly hasn't really looked all that devastating. Mizzou after this game, I mean, they do have Texas A&M at home, but the winner feels like they could lock up not only a spot in Atlanta, but maybe the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, who thought
Crazy
that was the case? I mean, Vanderbilt, I mean, they just continue to impress me because we knew they had Diego Pavia, right? And we knew that he would get his, but I mean, this team just looks very complete on defense, especially. I think that's where they made the biggest improvement. But I am a little worried. They're hobbled at running back. And I don't think they've really been tested against the run, maybe besides Alabama. And in that game, Alabama's running back was hurt. LSU doesn't run the football. And you got Ahmad Hardy coming in, and Missouri's going to try to run the football. So I think they're a little under-tested in that regard. Ultimately, it could come down to quarterback play, two pretty similar style guys. But I'm going to go with Ahmad Hardy and Missouri to come in here and wreck Vanderbilt's momentum. This was kind of a coin toss for me, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, too. I think Vandy's like a slight favorite heading into this game. They're like a 1.5. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes like back and forth and maybe goes to an even game, because these are two evenly matched teams. Like you mentioned at the quarterback, both dual threats with both Rabula and Diego Pavia, and two talented running backs, Cedric Alexander. I know that he was hobbled, but I think that honestly is going to be good to go. Like, who wouldn't want to play in a matchup like this? And you just talked about Ahmad Hardy. The defenses have really been playing well. So I think it's going to be another physical game that Mizzou and Vandy is going to be playing with. I think it's going to be very similar to what Mizzou just came out of that Auburn game. I wouldn't be shocked if this is like a 20-17 game final, maybe heading into overtime. But give me the Commodores. I think the magic continues here with Vandy. Honestly, it's not even magic. They've just really been an impressive team so far this season. And like I mentioned, the schedule is definitely manageable for both of these teams. So I think whoever wins this one, at worst could finish the season at 10-2, which is, like you mentioned, it's like crazy to say for both of these teams. But I will have Vandy winning this one and a tight one. But I do think that the defenses will rise to the occasion. But I will go with the home team. Chet going to go with the Commodores as well. So once again, Wade, you are on an island picking the Tigers. So now let's move on to the next game, number 22, Texas at Mississippi State. We talk about needing a big win, especially in the conference. Mississippi State has been long overdue. They are now on a 15-game losing streak in the SEC. That is second most. I believe the second team is Auburn, because they started like 0-4 in the SEC the past 3 seasons. Texas, this has been one of the most disappointing teams in all the conference. I mean, they started the preseason number one. Offense has just been abysmal. I mean, even in the Oklahoma game, I mean, I know that they put up 23, but most of those came on special teams and defense, setting themselves up. But who do you have in this one? Because I feel like this is going to be an ugly game.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I mean, it could be the game where Texas puts it all together. Mississippi State's defense has been pretty soft as of late. We saw Lagway put it together, so maybe it's a good sign for Arch Manning. But also, I mean, Mississippi State fans don't like the Manning family, so I could see this being very loud and ruckus, and I could see Mississippi State pulling off an upset or even a mild upset at this point.
Yeah.
But again, I think that this is kind of a game where the overarching talent of the team takes over, much like Kentucky. I mean, Texas didn't play great, and Kentucky had opportunities, but Texas capitalized in the end, and I think they do the same here. So I do think Texas ekes out another low-scoring, ugly win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly win here. I just don't really trust the quarterbacks. I mean, Blake Shapen, just too many miscues in some of these games that Mississippi State has had the opportunity to win. I mean, the talent is definitely around, especially the receiver and the running back. I mean, the two-headed monster there with Fluff Bothwell and Devon Booth. And then defense, like you mentioned, the defense hasn't been as sharp earlier in the season. I mean, the Tennessee game I mean, they gave up a lot of points to A&M. I mean, Florida game, DJ Lagway was able to get a lot of long passes there. I've been on the Mississippi State train, as you can tell from the show here. I mean, I've been pretty much picking them to get a big-time win in the conference. I'm hopping off. I've seen enough with this team, and they are improved from last year, but not too much improved from what I've been seeing, to be honest with you. I think they just need to go away from Blake Shapen. They have a very talented freshman in Kamari Taylor. They really just need to make the move now and go on to the future, because you have enough sample size with Blake Shapen. That dude is terrible. I mean, he was terrible at Baylor. What do you think that he was going to get? It's pretty much like the Derek Carr situation with the Saints. I mean, you have enough sample size. It's not like he's just going to become a Hall of Famer overnight. Honestly, this is going to be like a 17-14 type of game. It's going to be one of those lower scoring games that both of these teams are in, and Texas will get it done. I mean, I don't think we're going to have come back next week's show and be like, oh, Texas is back and all this. They're going to go 10-2 the rest of the way. But Chet's going to go with the upset, go Mississippi State. I'm at least happy that at least one of us pulled the trigger on that, because I could definitely see it. I mean, both of these teams could definitely do it. But Chet's rolling with the upset there. We will see if he has any more this week. He's been pretty vanilla. Maybe he's learned his lesson from last week of pulling too many upsets. Now let's move on to the next game that I thought was going to be our SEC talk game of the week, but with LSU losing, kind of lost some luster here between number 3 Texas A&M at number 20 LSU. Story in this one, A&M has definitely been one of the best teams in the SEC so far. LSU has been one of the more dud teams in the SEC. So do you have the Tigers? It's a Saturday night in Death Valley. I know it's a tough environment, but you know what's going to happen by the third quarter. You'll have 10,000 fans at least. Okay, well, it's time to leave, even though we're in a tie game or a 7-point lead. We got to get home and make our supper. But who you got between the Aggies and the Tigers?
Yeah, it's a shame that the atmosphere might not be as ruckus as it could be. If LSU beat Vanderbilt,
would have gotten peak.
Game day's coming. Kirk Herbstreit's coming. LSU's number 8 in the country.
Yep.
Would have been totally different. Now you're looking for any reason to jump Brian Kelly's case and fire him. So life comes at you fast. With that being said, I think it's a perfect time for A&M to come in here and sneak a road trip to LSU. Overall, I think the LSU defense struggling against running quarterbacks is just going to be their kryptonite in this one. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think just like Diego Pavia, Marcel Reed will make enough plays and extend enough plays to eke out a victory here.
All right, so roll with the Aggies. Yeah, it feels like every time that LSU does lose a game, typically in the past when they're coming back at home, especially in a night game, they do pull this thing out. So we will see. I mean, this is it for LSU, because I just feel like if you're in that stadium and LSU, like especially on offense, like say you go 3-and-out in the first couple ones, it's not going to be pretty. The environment is going to turn against you really quickly there, and the player honestly that could really get to the players at the point in that one. And like you mentioned, the kryptonite of this LSU defense has been against the running quarterback. Really, the outlier that has been Lenore Sellers, but every defense has had an opportunity to really stop that offense. They're one of the worst in the SEC this season. But Diego Pavia was able to get a lot of long runs. You even saw last year. I mean, look at last year's game. LSU was dominating this one in the first half. And what happens? They bench Connor Weigman. They go to Marcel Reed. In the post game, they're like, "Oh, we don't have a plan because we're like we didn't even know this guy was going to come in." That's just how dumb that this coaching staff has been in the past couple of years for LSU. So if this was like the upset for LSU, it was, but this culture has just gotten soft under this regime. I just don't really see it here. So give me Texas A&M. Like you, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. If it is a blowout, though, my gosh, if you think the uproar of this fan base is going to be loud, just wait if A&M comes in and beats the dog shit out of this team and what you're going to see outside of that. But Chet is, the positive on this side. He's still going with LSU to see if they can get it done. We will see. I don't know. I don't know heading into this game, but Wade and I are rolling with the Aggies. Deep down in our hearts, we would love to be wrong, but we will see what happens on Saturday night. All right, let's move on to our next game here. The nightcap here, number 17, Tennessee at Kentucky. This is going to be a game, we talked about past couple of weeks that we will see over the next couple of seasons. Same with Texas A&M and LSU. But Tennessee coming off of an absolute shellacking from Alabama. Kentucky in a grudge match against Texas. Can Kentucky keep it close and beat Tennessee here?
I mean, look, Kentucky's hung in a lot of games this year. You got to give them their credit. And surprisingly, it seems to be a pretty tough road spot for a lot of these top teams. I mean, I thought about pulling the trigger here on an upset. I kind of feel like they're in that Arkansas category where they're due for one of these. But this Tennessee offense has been pretty good. I mean, I think it's just going to overpower this defense.
Yeah, I was on the same until I had picked the Tennessee defense. I was like, well, it would be stupid of me for pick the Tennessee defense and put up Kentucky logo. But I wouldn't be shocked either if Kentucky really plays to the style of football, because I feel like they're going to have to do exactly what they did to Texas, because this is a high-powered Tennessee offense that you can't really get behind them. But I think that's going to be a great game. We'll see. But I just feel that Tennessee is going to make a statement. They're pissed off. They just got beaten and bruised by one of their hated rivals in Alabama. So I think that Tennessee gets back on track here and beats Kentucky. And Chet is going with the Volunteers as well. We're not going to make the same mistake as we did last week, because we literally just put up 3 Texas logos and moved on. So sorry,
got to give Kentucky their flowers
for disrespecting like you. Maybe you can actually win a game. You can get your logo back on here. One of us might actually pick you, but we will see. But now let's go on to our hot topics. Well, coaching carousel feels like we're getting this every single week now. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Sam Pittman, and we were like, what's going to be the next domino? We both said Florida. Well, here it is. I mean, this is 2 years late at this point. I mean, Florida finally fires head coach Billy Napier. It didn't really matter if they beat Mississippi State by 50 or lost by 50. They were going to do it today. It's just been pretty, expectations of Florida. I mean, the way that Dan Mullen, like the way that they just like booted him out the door and had this search for Billy Napier, and this was just a total failure. I mean, Billy Napier at the time, he was, rolling at Louisiana. He had a lot of headway there. But with Florida firing Billy Napier, what are some, takeaways on his tenure at Florida? Was it a disappointment, or maybe just things just got awry for him? And what do you think some top candidates would be for the Gators?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. At the time, I liked the hire, but I was a little skeptical because if you recall, LSU was looking for a coach as well, and they didn't even interview Billy Napier. So if a team that's on the same caliber as you in the SEC isn't even willing to interview the guy an hour and a half down the road, maybe that's a bad omen for who you're about to hire. They did it anyways. I think them firing him after beating Mississippi State is just kind of the icing on the cake for this tenure. I mean, what else do you want him to do? He won the game. I don't like it, but it's just kind of how it is with him. Um, Potential candidates? I don't know. I mean, you really run the risk of swinging and missing on a guy like Kiffin or another proven guy. I think the last thing you want to do is go hire John Summerall from Tulane.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go after any G5 coaches
I
anymore.
mean, that's Billy Napier, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely think their top candidate. I know from like the fan base that their top option is Lane Kiffin. It's just a matter of does Lane Kiffin? He's in a playoff run right now with Ole Miss. Like, does he think that he could reach a higher ceiling with Florida, or do you think could he is it just an even level playing field at Ole Miss and he just stays there and just waits for a better job? I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. Is the more obtainable hire within the conference if they want to go that route.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will keep track on all the news. If we have any news on like Arkansas, I know Auburn's going to be firing their head coach. Honestly, it's just a matter of time that we talk about that. But we will move on from the head coaching talk. We will have plenty of time over the next couple of weeks for that. But the next question is Alabama the team to beat in the SEC?
Crazy to say it because that Florida State loss, it was ugly, and Florida State
like 2 years out of that
is ugly too. But yeah, I think they are at the moment. I mean, I know it's A&M on paper, but if you ask most teams who they'd be most scared to play, it would be Alabama.
All right, let's get into our next question. I know one of us will say LSU for this one, but which team disappointed you in Week 8?
All right, taking LSU out the question because we're both obviously disappointed in the Tigers. I don't know. Probably Texas. I mean, I think Texas had the big win against Oklahoma, and they had every opportunity to get back on track and go into Kentucky and curb stomp them. And honestly, they got lucky that they won that game. I mean, they got outgained by 250 yards or something, and they needed a missed field goal to win it. So, yeah, I mean, even though they won, I think it's Texas.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. I just think that game was going to be closer, especially with the way that their offense has been. I know the defense has been lacking, but my gosh, that game did not even feel like Tennessee had it like at any point at the time. Like whenever they tied it 7-7, they immediately got the safety and Alabama, boom, touchdown. And then you're like, okay, they're driving. They're going to make it like a 8-point game. And then Joey Aguilar, 99-yard pick six. And then after the pick six, it was pretty much all she wrote for Tennessee. Yeah, I think that was definitely a game. That was like a measuring stick for Tennessee. Their schedule coming up isn't like that hard, so they could still make a run for the college football playoff. But I think with that defense, this team might be heading to like a 9-3, 8-4 season, which I think at the start of the season is what we both had there. So before we get into this last hot topic, as you saw there, we're going to get looking back at our preseason picks. I do want to get to some comments here coming from my mother herself. So she pretty much said LSU had too many problems. Let's play to win already. Go Tigers. And then LSU has a great team of players, but not playing to their full potential. And then Wade, I saw a tweet from my old pal T-Bob Abear, who is now working. Well, it just went away. Okay, there it is. He pretty much said, I have never seen a softer culture at LSU than what we are witnessing right now. Everyone is overpaid and underperforming, satisfied to go home to their bank accounts. There's no toughness to this team and no toughness to this program. LSU has forgotten the face of its father. Now, Wade, I know that you and I had some opportunities to meet with T-Bob over the last couple of years when he was in BR. So do you agree with old T-Bob?
Yeah, I mean, if former players that have more inside access than we do are saying it, you gotta take it to heart. And I think that's partially just college football in general is softer, but LSU is definitely not a program you want to hear as described as soft. So I believe it, and I think some of it's good. I mean, I think Brian Kelly's brought in some character and some soft skills. So if that's kind of what he's referring to, I can't argue against it. But I think if we're just talking about the overall mentality of the team being soft, then yeah, I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So let's go ahead and get to our hot topics. And over almost at an hour and 10 minutes. So sorry for going for a little bit too long here, but I do want to get to this. I tried to get into it last week, but I guess we had a guest speaker here. But let's go ahead. We had our SEC Talk preseason show just a couple of months ago back in August, and we're going to go through each segment that we went through here just to see how right we were at this moment of juncture and if we want to change any picks. So our first question was, which team in the SEC will exceed expectations? Wade, you said Texas A&M. I think at that point they have pretty much exceeded expectations.
Went from unranked to number 3, so can't argue with that.
Mine is Auburn. I would immediately like to change that because they are the same old Auburn at this point. Which team will fall short of expectations? Wade, you said Texas.
Man, I'm looking good.
2 for 2, and I said Tennessee.
I think that's fair.
At this point, it's fair. Who will be the worst team in the SEC? You said Mississippi State. Still could happen. They don't have a win in the SEC. Kentucky for me. So I think at this point, we wouldn't change anything. They're still winless in the SEC, but we will see. Who will be the surprise team of the SEC? You said Tennessee, but I went back. You said it surprisingly in a bad way. Yes. Right now, I think if you're a Tennessee fan heading into the season, you would agree with that. I said Ole Miss. So far, so good with the Rebels. I wouldn't change anything on that. Who is our dark horse team in the SEC? You went with the Tigers. I think you feel pretty good on them. I said Oklahoma. Oklahoma still alive on that. If they do beat Ole Miss, I still think that they have every right to be that. Who is our coach of the year? You have Kirby Smart. So far, I still think it could be Smart, but at this point, how could it not be Clark Lee once again? Because I know he won it last year. It could be Eli Drinkwitz. I went with Steve Sarkisian. Let's be honest with you, that's not going to happen. So I definitely changed that to either Drinkwitz or maybe if Lane Kiffin runs the table and goes 11-1, I could see him getting some votes there. Who's our player of the year? This is where it gets really bad. You went with DJ Lagway, and I went with Garrett Nussmeier. 2 of the more underperforming quarterbacks in all the SEC. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little bit of a bold pick, but hey, I was drinking the Gatorade.
Yes, you were. And then finally, our SEC championship picks. You had Georgia versus LSU. How would you feel?
Well, half of that might be right.
Yeah, I have Texas versus Alabama.
Half of that might be right.
It might just be Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, what about Georgia-Bama? Can we combine our picks?
Yeah, we could combine our picks, but you have SEC champion Georgia, and I had Alabama. So honestly, throughout the duration of this, I think the only part where we really screwed up was the player of the year pick. But to be honest with you, like, how are we supposed to know? Like look at all the other
Texas,
look at all the other quarterbacks in the ACC. We thought it was going to be Clemson and Cade Klubnik runaway. Look at what Clemson, their state is. And Big Ten, we thought it was going to be Drew Rowler being like the best quarterback. It's Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sands. So I think it's honestly not against us. Like, a lot of people are high on both Lagway and Nussmeier, like Lenore Sellers too. But overall, pretty good from us. We will go back to that at the end of the season to see if anything happened there. That's going to be the end of our show here for week number 9 of SEC Talk. I appreciate everybody for tuning in to tonight's show. We'll be back, just a schedule update on, I believe, Wednesday, on next Wednesday. So we'll have a little bit of recap from week number 9 to see what happened in the conference. We'll also look now to week number 10. We're getting to the double digits of the weeks. It happens every single year. We look up, and it's like, oh, it's already week 10. It's like it feels like it's only week 1. But that's just how college football works. But I do appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy this upcoming slate of SEC football. And we'll see you right back here on SEC Talk next week.